listening to the Why Boarding School podcast, broadcasting around the world. Join us as we promote independent boarding schools throughout the United States and Canada with our invited guests. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jeffrey Quebec.
Welcome to the Why Boarding School podcast. I'm Jeff Quebec, and today I'm joined by the Director of Enrollment Management at Wasatch Academy in Mount Pleasant, Utah, Ryan John. Welcome, Ryan. It's great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about our school with you and your audience.
With a rich history dating back to 1875, Wasatch Academy is in the unique position as being Utah's only college preparatory boarding school. Ryan, perhaps you can start by giving our audience a brief overview of the number of students at Wasatch Academy, the grades you offer, where the students come from, etc.
So our grades are 8th through 12, and we have a small PG program each year. And we also really lean into hands-on type of learning, constructivist learning. The kids do a lot of project-based learning. We get our kids out in the natural environment, which we are blessed to have a few different ecosystems right out our back door, which is pretty cool. And we're very proud of our sesquicentennial year this year, turning 150 years old, and being able to celebrate that with alums that come from darn near every country in the world and every state in the union. Right now we're about 150 students, and they come from 23 or 24 different countries and 23 or 24 different states. So we have the ability to celebrate a lot of diversity, and that's something that's pretty beautiful to see on a daily basis.
Oh, that's great. And so what's the academic curriculum like at Wasatch Academy?
So our academic curriculum, as I said before, leads into a lot of project-based learning and getting kids outdoors. So one of the coolest classes I like to talk about is our geology and rock climbing class. It's pretty cool. Our kids get a chance to do book learning and lab work and stuff like that, like you'd see in a normal school setting. But they also throw mountain bikes and hiking boots in the back of their vans and drive on out to places like Maple Canyon, which has some pretty world-class climbing that's there. It's about a 15, 20-minute drive from here. And head up some climbing ropes on belay and study stratified layers of different sedimentary rocks that they get a chance to actually go and look at and take samples of instead of just being stuck in a classroom all the time. On our eastern side of our campus, we've got the Wasatch Front, which has a lot of green, deciduous and carnivorous forest ecosystem, a lot of big mammals, bear, elk, deer, mountain lion, stuff like that. And then that's about 4 miles to our east. And if you just look 4 or 5 miles to our west, it looks like an old John Wayne Western over there, where you've got juniper bushes and sagebrushes and tumbleweeds and rattlesnakes and all kinds of reptilians. So literally 4 or 5 miles this way, 4 or 5 miles that way, our kids can take different water samples, rock samples, animal sign, and all that kind of stuff, and come back and do comparative analysis that is just a blessing of where we are. Not very many schools have vastly different ecosystems literally within eye shot of their campus, and we happen to have that. Our campus is set up like a mini college. So we have departmental buildings like you would see at most schools, most colleges. And we have some new buildings that are really impressive. Our arts is really strong, both performing and studio arts. So we've got a music conservatory building, which is an old Presbyterian church we bought about 8 years ago and put almost $2 million into, with an Apple music lab in there. All the instruments kids need to play. They don't need to come with cellos and violins and all that kind of stuff. We've got all the instruments right here for our kids to either find a new passion or really develop one that they already have. And when you walk into our art studio, we've got a photography center that is set up by the son of Ansel Adams. Actually helped us come up with the curriculum for that. Ansel Adams sent his son here to Wasatch many years ago. And our kids go all the way from learning how to make their own pinhole cameras, take pictures, develop those pictures, and you learn how to use the camera and photography styles that way. And then they move from there to 8mm all the way through 35mm, and then into digital photography, time-lapse photography, astrophotography, all kinds of really cool stuff that our kids get to do to be creative. One of the things that we get to do too is we've got an equine program that any kid can sign up for introduction to equine, and so part of their day every day could be going down to the barn, throwing a saddle on a horse and learning how to ride English or how to ride Western, a little bit of hoof care for the animals, and just something that kids that come from all over the world haven't had a chance to expose themselves to. So we have such a rich, unique environment that exists here in our small corner of the middle of Utah, where kids get to get exposed to things that just because of where they're from, they wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that before, and it's a pretty cool thing to watch.
It sounds like between the school's environment and the opportunity for hands-on learning, what a great opportunity for these students.
Yeah, our engineering center is pretty amazing too. There's wood shops and laser cutters and robotics labs and maker spaces and all the tools a kid might need to make prototypes and things like that, 3D printers. So all the tools that they need to really get creative and create whatever their brains are telling them to create is pretty awesome to see. And these kids come up with some pretty amazing projects to showcase their talents and their interests.
Certainly sounds like a lot of fun. Can you talk a little bit about the academic support that Wasatch offers through the Learning Strategies program?
Sure. So we've got a learning center. That's one of the buildings that we have on campus. Homework help and dedicated study halls. For example, in the evening we have a math lab, and there's always a math teacher available or an English teacher available to help with the various different disciplines that kids might need help in. But then we also have a set of 11 different learning coaches, I think it is, and they have different expertise. Like some of them are really good at helping kids with executive function. Some of them are really good at helping kids with math and science type of content area stuff, and then same thing with English and history. And so if we have a kid who needs a lot of one-on-one help, we can actually assign them a learning coach. It does come with an added cost, I will say, but assign them a learning coach where they're with that coach 1 day a week or 1 hour a day all week long for 4 of the days of the week, and they get a chance to fill in gaps and bolster deficiencies, figure out ways to leverage strengths against weaknesses to make themselves a stronger student who's more successful in the things that they might be struggling with. And then one of those days is a day where the kids are not one-on-one with their learning coach. The kids from that period come together and they do some social emotional learning and things like that every kid can benefit from having exposure to. The people that work in that department are awesome, and I will say this, it is an awful business model because the idea is to get them out of there as quickly as we can. So generally kids will spend a semester or 2, maybe 3, but by the time they're getting into that second semester junior year and certainly coming into senior year, we want to kind of take the reins off of that and let them kind of see how they do. The learning coaches are always there to help them if they're stuck with something or just need a little nudge in an area. But getting them ready to be self-sufficient in college, manage their time, and be successful is kind of the goal of the program. And it takes every kid, a different amount of time to get there. But the idea is to get them there so that they don't need that anymore. So.
Yeah, very nice. I imagine the consistency of how often they meet adds a lot to their development.
It certainly does. And the one-on-one component, I think, is huge. If you walk through the space, I wish I could show it to you. It's visually set up for, each workstation is just 2 chairs, either next to each other or across from each other. And so the kids can get the help that they need, whatever they need, with just that one-on-one focus. And that is a huge difference maker for kids who struggle academically or just aren't as organized as they need to be.
Very nice. And so, Ryan, can you tell me a little bit about the visual and performing arts offerings at Wasatch?
Yeah, so the performing arts offerings we have includes a vast array of musical ensembles, if you will. So our introductory levels for that are exploratory. So if you were to go on our website and look at the page that talks about our arts program, you'd see, for example, exploratory violin or exploratory orchestra, and then you'd see orchestra below that as well. well. So it's good to think of those as like basic or novice and then more advanced. So whether or not we have a student coming in who's never touched an instrument before and has no idea how to read music, or a kid is coming in and can play Chopin, we can meet them where they are and help them get better. In fact, I'll give you an anecdote. I'm not just the director of enrollment management here. I also have a parent hat. I've got a junior and a freshman that go to school here, and my freshman started playing guitar this year in August. And I walked in on a tour the other day, happened to poke my head around the corner. I heard a kid absolutely slamming Enter Sandman and one of my favorite Metallica tunes. And I looked around the corner and it was my son. And I was like, holy cow, this kid's never touched a guitar, and he's hammering away on some pretty sophisticated guitar music. So our teachers are really, really strong. The music department has master's and PhD level folks in it. One of the person who teaches orchestra, who focuses mostly on strings and also wind instruments. She played in a couple different like city symphonies across the country, some pretty big ones. And then the gentleman who teaches our modern ensemble, which is a really fancy music-y way to say rock band. He teaches that. He teaches guitar. He teaches voice. For 25 years, he was, maybe 27, he was a touring musician all over the world, playing with a band who played, thousands of people venues. So, I mean, he's got real musician experience. And then we have a guy who works in digital sound packaging, digital music, things like that. He's part of the music department. He's a DJ by trade. He does soundtracks for movies, and he helps out recording studios from time to time with digital sound packaging. And he plays, as a DJ, he plays Burning Man every single year on the big stage. So we've got people who've made it as musicians, who've decided that they're going to come in and they're going to lean into passing on their love and passion for music to kids who are already passionate or becoming passionate about it. And then our performing arts department, it depends on how many kids we have who are really interested in theater. We do have a theater class that kids will take, but there's been years where we had 5 or 6 kids who were really into theater, and they do the theater program, but the cast of characters that they had to pull from wasn't large enough, so they did a bunch of like one acts or one man or one woman type of plays. And then we've also had years where we've got 25 kids who are interested in it, and so we can do a larger production. So we're able to be nimble and give the kids the experiences that they're looking for. It just might be looking a little bit different from one year to the next based on the interest of the kids that we have in the the makeup of our constituency from year to year. When it comes to studio art, our art building is phenomenal. I wish that this was a walking tour where I could show you things, because in our art building, we've got a printmaking studio, which anybody who's into art would know that that's something you don't generally learn unless you are in college. Usually it's a 200 level class, and you're probably an art student if that's something that you're learning. Our 8th and 9th graders they do a printmaking lesson or unit when they're in Introduction to Art, so it's something that they know that they can be exposed to. We have an outstanding clay studio where we've got kick wheels, and we also have electric wheels that kids can get on and learn how to make pottery. And we have I think I already talked about the dark room, but a full dark room where kids can have all the tools that they need to develop any kind of developing that they want to do. I'm not a photographer, so I don't know all the technical words for it, but they can do all kinds of stuff in there, and they create some really cool things. We have one kid who is printing or developing exposures in blue ink on glass, which is something that actually made him. He went to the Utah State high school art fair competition, and he placed as a finalist in his category because this is something that is new and unique and sort of cutting edge that this kid came up with. We've got another student who put exposures on an actual hosta leaf, like those big elephant hosta leaves that are big, like basketball size big, and she put an exposure on top of that, which is something I've never seen before, and it was really cool. And then we also have our, traditional 2D drawing and painting classes that kids can learn how to work in. And then we also have a lot of the tools that kids would need to get creative with, mixed media type of things that they might be getting to with art. And one of the coolest things we have is something called immersions. And we can talk about those at another time. But one of them went out to Moab just a couple of weeks ago, and they did time-lapsed astrophotography. So they had their time-lapse cameras out in Moab and Arches, looking at the sky, the night sky. They went out there on the days they did because there was a comet that was coming through at that point in time. And then they did an art show in our gallery space. So one thing that's unique to our school is in the art building, which is on Main Street in Mount Pleasant. So there's certain times of the week and day where the public can come in and view the student art and actually buy student art as well. So when our students sell art, they keep the money, but they learn a little bit of entrepreneurship. They learn a little bit of negotiating skills. Sometimes they get to have a bidding war and they sell it for more than what they thought they were going to sell it for. So it gives the kids a really real world artist experience for them to be able to create and then try and sell their creation, so that if they're going to be artists, hopefully they wouldn't be your colloquial starving artist. They'd be able to make a living doing some things that they're passionate about. And we try and give our kids authentic ways to show their talents. And just last night we had a concert where our vocal ensemble and our string ensemble and some soloists went out there and did their thing, and members of the community who aren't even affiliated with the school will come in and enjoy that kind of thing, because we're in a small town. So those cultural type events that the school puts on is something that the town enjoys too, which is a nice element for our boarding school. We're very well connected with our town and our and the things that we do and the things that they do, support each other in a couple really interesting ways, actually.
Well, it's certainly nice for the community, but it's also a nice way to showcase Wasatch Academy to the area residents.
For sure. And with it's a community that's supported our existence for 150 years. I'm hoping that we can have a partnership that they help support our existence for 150 plus more. So it's an important relationship to the school. It's an important relationship to the city and the community that surrounds us, and it's a pretty cool thing to see.
I also like the idea how your students are not only having such a wide variety of arts to become involved with, but also they're learning from practicing artists. So either those that have been there, done it, or that are continue to be in the trenches, and they truly sounds like they understand the arts and what the current methods and ways to teach art.
They certainly do, and the folks in our studio arts are just as technical professionals as the ones in our music program are. These folks have been making art, selling art, teaching art, appreciating art, loving art, and passing on their passion for a long time. The two of our three teachers, one is new this year, but the other two, like new to us, and the other two have been here for a very, very long time, and they are very accomplished artists with a keen eye and a lot of talent that they have no problem passing on to the kids. They're really, really fantastic teachers.
Well, that's great. So in addition to us having a strong visual performing arts program, are there any other special signature programs that are offered at Wasatch?
Yeah, there are. I would say that our STEM program is definitely a signature type of program, and especially when it comes to the natural sciences, just because of the natural surrounding that we have and the things that we're able to leverage in those natural science courses. Our equestrian program is definitely a signature program. We teach Western and English riding. Our Western, the guy who runs our program is the Western expert, and I mean he's been a roping riding cowboy for his whole entire life. But he's also like one of the kindest, gentlest souls that you'll ever meet in your life. And the more kids that we can get around that man, the better the world will be. And we've got a stable of like 16 horses that kids have access to. So there's some places where if kids want to experience and understand something different, like an equine experience, you've got to bring your own horse. But here, that's not the case. We don't charge extra for our introduction to equine classes, and we don't charge extra for our activity period where kids can choose to go be involved in equine as well. and that's because the horseback culture of the West is something that's really important to a lot of places in the West, and making sure that kids from all over the country and the world have exposure to that kind of thing is pretty awesome. And to see kids interact with those animals in ways that they haven't before is not only a pretty cool signature program for us to have, but it's also pretty interesting to be able to watch kids, discover that side of themselves. And as I was saying before, the school and the city have a unique partnership with each other. There's a big indoor and outdoor facility that's about 42 acres that our school has full access to, and so the equine program runs no matter how deep the snow is and how cold the air is, because we've got an indoor facility that we can leverage. And our basketball program is probably the thing that, if people have heard of Wasatch before outside our corner of the country, it's probably because of our basketball program. We're perennially one of the top 10 basketball teams in the country. We just had a game on ESPNU like a week ago. So that program is really strong, and we've got multiple levels of basketball for our school. We've got our national team who plays literally all over the country. Years past, they've had games in China. This year they're playing some games in a tournament in the Bahamas. So they travel all over the place, and they play some of the top schools in the country. They play in the EYBL, which is a Elite Youth Basketball League sponsored by Nike. There's 16 or 17 teams in it. One of those teams is from Canada. The rest are from the United States. But we also have teams underneath that team. So if you've got a kid who's literally anything we do, we can take kids who might be dribbling a basketball for the first time, and we can take kids who can fly through the air and slam dunk balls left and right. And we've got a program that can help develop those kids no matter what level they're at, which is a common thread, a tie that binds, I think, all of our programs that we have. And then our English language learning program is really strong as well. We have two different levels for it. We have a foundational level, and in that level, you'd have a small group of kids, say 3, 4, 5 kids, working with a teacher, and that teacher delivers the curriculum that is going on in the what I'll call the regular classroom for English and for history and for science. And so for 3 periods a day, those kids are with an ELL teacher who can help them work through some of that technical English academic language that they might be seeing that aren't the kinds of language you're going to be using when you're just in conversation with people. So to get them to where they need to be strong with academic English in the classroom. And then they, in math and all their electives, they go in there with their classmates who are not in the ELL program. And then for kids whose English is more advanced than that, and they don't need that level of support, that, by the way, is one of those things like the Learning Center where that does come with an additional cost and is also a bad business model, because we want to get them out of that as quickly as we can. But if you've got kids coming in and they're struggling with the technical language of a chemistry class, let's say, they can go in and get some support from the ELL teacher without being part of that program, and that doesn't come with any additional cost. Just like homework help and study labs that happen in the evening don't come with any additional cost either. So those are probably our strongest, most signature programs that I would say make us special and unique, and reasons why particular families might be really looking hard in our direction.
So Ryan, let's go back to the athletics. So is every student at Wasatch required to play a sport? And also, what are some of I know you've mentioned a couple, what are some of the other athletic offerings that Wasatch has?
So no student is required to play a sport, but they are all required to participate in our activity period. And our activity period works like this. So if a student wants to do chess club and robotics, chess club might be offered Tuesdays and Thursdays, robotics might be offered Mondays and Wednesdays, so they can be involved with both of those. Robotics also might go Monday through Thursday, and a kid could choose to do all 4 days in robotics. That same activity period is when sports periods happen as well. When it comes to sports, they don't have that kind of choice, because if you're playing volleyball, you need your 4 days of practice to be prepared to play your games and be successful against opponents. So kids are not required to play sports, but they are required to participate in activity periods. To answer your question about what sports we offer, I hope I remember them all. But
That's all right.
Soccer, volleyball, golf, cross country, track, swimming, basketball, baseball, softball. We have some years. It depends on where the student interest is. And then we also have snow sports, which is a non-competitive activity that the kids do. It's more recreational, so we take them up to places like Park City, Mount Brighton. Utah has, I was a competitive alpine ski racer, and I can tell you it's got the best snow that there is in Utah. So our kids get to go up and really enjoy that and leverage that. We also have our own ski hill, which is down right now. It's not operational this year. There's some things that we need to do to upgrade it to make it what it needs to be. So this is the first year it hasn't run in a few years. That's only about 20 minutes away. That should be up and running again in the next year or two once we get the infrastructure things that we have to get done there. And then we also have, again, the equestrian program. Kids can be involved in that. That is a sport here. Kids can join the rodeo team. Kids can compete in English equestrian. Not a whole lot do, but the option is there. And then we have our mountain biking and hiking team. So they get out and do a whole lot of cool outdoorsy stuff, weather permitting. And we have a nice big indoor rock wall. It's like maybe 35-ish feet tall and 75, 80 feet wide. And then we also have a bouldering room, which for anybody who doesn't know what bouldering is, it's basically climbing diagonally and linearly. You don't go the room is a 10-foot ceiling. We've got safe fall pads is what they're called basically, where they're 10 or 12-inch foam pads where if a kid falls from 10 feet down, they're going to land on something soft and they might, tweak a wrist or something like that, but they're not going to split their head open. They're not going to, have concussions or anything like that. And on the big wall, they have to be on belay, and there has to be trained people who understand how to work belay and adult supervision. But in the bouldering room, they can go in there and they can climb, and there has to be an adult around, but there's no lines, there's no ropes to worry about, so they can really access that stuff. And then track and field. I don't know if I said track and field yet, and tennis. And I think I didn't forget anything. I think that rounds it out. But if anybody really wants to know, if you go to wasatchacademy.org, at the top line there's an athletics tab, and when you click on that, it'll drop down to what all of our swimming. I didn't say swimming. It'll drop down to what all of our offerings are, and then there's a little plus sign in the picture that represents each sport, and it'll drop down and tell you what the season is for boys and for girls. Most of the time they're the same, but like for example, golf. Boys play in the fall, girls play in the spring. So it'll tell you what season the sports are, what level we compete at, how often they can expect to have competitions and practices and things like that. And it answers most any question that somebody's going to have.
And it seems like there's a level for everyone, based on what you're saying.
Yeah, that's something that is really important to us, that nothing is exclusive or exclusionary for kids who haven't been exposed to it before. So if you've never played tennis before, but you want to, and you don't even know the rules, and you've never hit a ball, we'll help make it so that you understand the rules and can hit balls. And then if you're also good, there's a level for you to compete at as well within the Utah State Athletic Association. So we try to make it so that if a kid has an interest, we're going to expose them to that interest if it's something that we offer, and we're going to do it in a way that's appropriate for whatever level they're at.
Very nice. So we're going to do, Ryan, we're going to take a quick break, and we come back, and we're going to learn more about Wasatch Academy.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
Do you have any questions or guests that you'd like to see on an upcoming Why Boarding School podcast? You can contact us directly through our website at whyboardingschool.com. Now, back to our show.
Welcome back to the Why Boarding School podcast. I'm Jeff Quebec, and I'm joined today by the Director of Enrollment Management from Wasatch Academy in Mount Pleasant, Utah, Ryan John. And Ryan, as we continue our conversation here learning about Wasatch Academy, can you maybe explain to our audience what is a typical school day like at Wasatch Academy?
Yeah, I'd be happy to explain that. So the typical day starts in the morning with breakfast, and I have to add a plug to our awesome kitchen staff. A lot of boarding schools outsource their food to big vendors that operate across the country. Ours is run by local people who work for Wasatch. 3 of the people that work in there have kids that go to Wasatch. They're quite literally making the food for their kids and their kids' friends. I've worked at 3 boarding schools, and I went to 2 different colleges, and this is really good food. Best food I've had at any of them. So the day starts with breakfast for most kids, and a really good, healthy, yummy one, which we can get into more detail about if you want. And then classes start at about 8:30 for the kids. I think it's at 8:35. And then the day runs until either 3:45 or 4:15. So on Monday and Thursday and Friday, students will have all their classes meet. And each student has 7 periods in the day, and most students have 6 or 7 classes. Some upperclassmen might have a study hall, which is why I say 6. Most of your lowerclassmen would never have a study hall class. And then lunch kind of moves around a little bit, but it's always around 12 or 12:30. And the reason it moves, and the reason that the classes only meet, all 7 of them, 3 days a week, is because on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, there's basically 4 class periods. On Tuesdays, all the even number classes meet, so 2, 4, 6, it's odd, 1, 3, 5, and 7. And then on Wednesdays, 2, 4, 6 meet. And then we also have something called wellness perspectives, which is part of what a lot of other schools might use as their residential life curriculum. But what it does is it addresses all kinds of age-appropriate issues for kids, and those wellness perspectives classes are run mostly by our administrators who teach all kinds of different things. I did one, my last one was about 3 weeks ago. I was working with the 8th and 9th graders, and it was all about self-advocacy. How to write an email appropriately, how to work to try and be respectful to turn a no into a yes, those kinds of things. And so there's all different life skills that the kids learn through those wellness perspectives classes. And on those Tuesdays and Wednesdays, also the reason the classes are only about half instead of all of them is because those are lab days. So each class, whether you're a science class or whether you're a Spanish or Mandarin class, you're going to get 1 day a week of an hour and 15 or an hour and 20 minutes so that you can do some of those things that take up more time than your typical 50-minute class. And then so the kids go to school on those long days until 4:15. All the other days it's 3:45. After that's over, they start activity periods at 4:30. Activity periods have to run until 5:30. Sports sometimes run longer than that, into like 6 or so. Dinner starts at 5:45, goes till 6:45 serving, and kids can stay and eat until 7 before the doors close. Then they have some downtime where they can go into what we call the TD, or the Tiger's Den, where there's all kinds of cool, fun stuff to do, like video games, pool tables, ping pong tables, basketball, shoot 'em things.
So that's like a student center, essentially?
Student center, play area. Just a really cool spot for them to go congregate and spend some time together with their friends. And then study hall starts at 7:45, goes till 9:30. After study hall's over, students are supposed to remain in the dorm. Kids will do things like hang out with their buddies, or maybe do some laundry if it's their laundry day or something like that. And then it's in rooms and lights out. That changes a little bit based on how old you are. The seniors, I think they're supposed to be in bed and lights out by 11. 10:45 I think is in rooms and lights out 11. If you're in 8th grade, you're going to be in your room at 10, and they're going to expect you to have your lights out, going to sleep by 10:15. But it's all pretty well monitored and managed so that they're getting enough sleep, getting appropriate sleep, and they've got 10 minutes passing between each class. Because our campus, you might have to walk 5 or 6 minutes to go from the one farthest corner to the other farthest corner. And so they get some, 10 minutes between classes, especially when you have to change buildings, is enough time to check your phone, hang out with your friends, say hi or whatever, and then get to your stuff. So they've got enough structure in the day where they get some me time, if you will, sprinkled throughout it. But there's never too much of it where they don't have to be somewhere responsible and accountable for doing something throughout the course of the day, which really does a nice job getting them ready for their next step if, when they go off to college or whatever. I've talked to several alums who say, one of the best things that they learned from a skills perspective in their time at Wasatch is that when they go out to college and there's some game they want to go watch or some function they want to attend, they know how to manage their time and make sure that they get the work done before the fun. And that's, I think, a good life skill. It's a good college skill. And it's one that kids certainly pick up, at lots of boarding schools, but here as well.
That's certainly a good tribute and testimony to you and your colleagues of what they're learning, other students,
Yeah.
being well prepared. And so tell me a little bit about, what are the weekends like at Wasatch Academy? Are there events on campus, different clubs or activities, trips off campus? What's that look like?
Yes, to all of that. So our activity periods on Friday, unless you're an athlete and your team has a practice or a game, activity period becomes rec period on Friday. Part of that is because to get to a lot of the things that our kids like to do, you've got to go up to Spanish Fork, Provo, the southern end of Salt Lake City. So they hightail out of here at like 3:30 on a bunch of buses and go to do all kinds of things. And Ephraim is a small town, larger than us, but still a small town, about 20 minutes to our south. So if they're going to go out to dinner or pizza or like bowling, things like that, a Walmart trip, let's say. There's always a Walmart trip on Friday because everybody needs to go to Walmart at some point in time to get stuff.
Stock up, right?
Yeah, but then they also do all kinds of really cool stuff. And we have a transportation fee that we have all the students that come here pay, but it's also sort of like a recreation fee because the vast majority of our weekend trips don't incur any additional cost for the kids. So they might go up to, like just this past weekend, they went to a crater hot springs, which is a natural crater that has hot springs that are inside the crater, which is really pretty cool. And before they went to that, there was a winter formal that weekend too, so a lot of the girls went to go get their nails done and stuff like that, and some of the guys went to go walk around the mall while the girls were getting their hands done, and everybody then went over to Crater and had a really good time. There's 14 slots, I think it is, that you can have in Crater. It's not huge, so they limit how many people can go. And a couple months ago, our activities person booked out the whole Crater for the night, and we took the kids up there to do it. But they do all kinds of other things, like going to the aquarium or the museum or heading to one of the several malls. There's also some amusement parks that when they're open, we take kids to. There's this place called Boondocks, which is a whole lot of fun. It's your traditional, like, putt-putt and go-karts and all kinds of arcade things to do. And then there's also a lot of cultural stuff that we offer for the kids to do. We'll do tickets to the Salt Lake Symphony or to plays that are happening up in Salt Lake. A lot of kids like to go to various different little parts of town inside Salt Lake. So there's a little Chinatown area where they like to go and do some shopping and some, get a meal and things like that. And one thing that's nice, that's unique to the boarding schools I've been at, is that when we take kids up to, say, see a soccer game, because there's a MLS team here, or a lacrosse game, because there's a PLL lacrosse team here, and they're not going to make it back for dinner, instead of being like, all right, you guys figure out dinner and we'll stop at a food court, they get off the bus somewhere, they hand every kid $15, and they go in and then they eat at Chick-fil-A or Wendy's or whatever it is that they want to eat. So the kids get a chance to really get out and do all kinds of really cool stuff on the weekends. So that happens Friday nights. A lot of trips happen like all day. Saturday, our brunch on weekends is from 11 until 12:30, and then that's when they serve food, and then everybody's got to be gone by like 12:45. So we'll have a lot of trips that'll leave anywhere between noon and 1:30, and they won't get back until like 9:30 or 10 because they're going to go to the mall and then the movies and then dinner, or mall, dinner, movies, or something like that. And then we also have things that are outdoorsy types of stuff to do as well. In the winter, we'll do snowshoeing. They'll do equestrian, like they'll take the horses down to Moab and ride around Moab on horses for a few hours of the day. They'll do hikes to certain places. There's one teacher, whenever he's on duty, he likes to try and get out to waterfalls. So he might sponsor a trip where they're going to go see this waterfall or that waterfall and have a few mile hike to get there to get to it. So there's a pretty vast array of things that the kids can do. And the really cool thing too is they send out, her name's Mel, she's the one who does the student activities. So Mel will send out, what do you want to do, surveys to the kids, and they'll rank order stuff. And then she'll try to, over the course of the next 3 or 4 weekends, put in the things where you've got, a plurality of kids that would make sense to go there. And if there's not enough kids that want to go, she'll go tell the kid who really wants to do that, and be like, you find 4 or 5 friends who wants to go do this, and we'll make it a trip. So there's really a whole lot of things for them to do. If I could go back in time and go to school here, I would love to do it, because there's just so many things that Utah has to offer.
It certainly seems like there's no shortage of fun activities. And what I'd like to do is like to come back to the yummy food you mentioned. I know you mentioned the yummy food and the brunch. So what are the meals like at Wasatch? Do they sit down? Are they buffet? Are they required? How does that work?
So we only have like one formal meal a year, and that happens before our winter break. So it's a holiday meal. There's menorahs and Santa and Mrs. Claus and stuff like that. That's our only formal meal. The kids get all dressed up for it and all that kind of stuff. Everything else is buffet style, and open for a window of time. Breakfast is an hour, and I think it's an hour long. Dinner is an hour and a half. Lunch is an hour and 15 minutes. A typical breakfast, when you walk in, I love breakfast here. When you walk in, there's a fruit bar, and I'm not talking like apples and bananas and oranges. I'm talking like blackberries and raspberries and blueberries and cantaloupe, melons. They mix it up, but some really good fresh fruits. And then there's always vanilla yogurt, and then usually one other flavor of yogurt that sort of rotates. There's a MTO, made to order omelet station that the kids can go to. It's usually 4 days a week that's open. You can get fresh, like you can say I'd like an over easy egg. They almost always have scrambled eggs ready to just serve you, ready to go, and some breakfast meats and some potatoes or grits or something like that. But you can always ask for an over easy egg or an over hard egg or whatever. And then they do a really nice job trying to bring international flavor into our meals. So sometimes at breakfast you'll have, like, I don't know if you've ever had them before, but they're called tea eggs. Often served in Asian countries. It's basically like a hard-boiled egg that they hard-boil in black tea instead of hard-boiling in water. It's interesting. It gives them, it's not a strong flavor, but it gives them an interesting flavor. They've got some special kimchis that they'll put out sometimes that are more breakfast types of kimchis. And for people who've traveled the world, they know American breakfasts are generally very sweet as compared to what other parts of the world serve. And we're sensitive to that because we have about half of our students are international students. So you'll see things that you might see in Europe or Asia or South America, over to the left. And they kind of cycle through what that might look like. And then in lunches, that's the only meal that has a rush, because everybody's getting out of class at the same time, and everybody's showing up at the same time. So there's more stations open for lunch because of that rush. But the salad bar is fantastic. There's usually, I would say, maybe 15 of those little bins where you might have olives and broccoli and cauliflower and all that stuff. And again, the offerings cycle through. They usually have one salad that's already prepared with the dressing on it and all that kind of stuff, and then all the things that you would need to build your own. There's always a noodle bar, so there's always miso. Miso is always one of the broths that you have to choose from, and then they rotate other ones. So there might be chicken or beef, or like a fish or a vegetarian type of one that you might see there, with all the stuff to add to your bowl. So different kinds of noodles, whether they're soba noodles or whether they're ramen noodles. There's usually 2 or 3 different kinds, and then the cabbages and the kimchis and the
Ryan, you're making me hungry here.
The fresh herbs that you put inside there. I'm telling you, it's really, really good. And then you can also, there's like a burger, like chicken breast and hot dog station where they're just making those things, and if the other stuff doesn't suit your fancy, you can go and grab yourself a burger or a hot dog or whatever. And then a couple days a week there's a pizza station where the kids can build their own mini pizza and then hand it to the folks on the food line, and they make it hot and melt the cheese and make it delicious and move on with it. And then dinner is lunch. Breakfast and lunch are my favorite, and that doesn't mean dinner's bad. Dinner is good. There's just not as many options, because once again, they're not getting slammed at dinner. It's sort of a trickle. You get the kids who are off activity at 5:30 and show up right at 5:45, and then you got kids who are at basketball practice not showing up till 6:15. But there's always a salad bar, just like at lunch, and then there's a couple different hotline options, and then we always at both breakfast and dinner also have a deli bar where the kids can go build like a cold cut sandwich or something like that if they want. So even if what's on the hotline makes you go, I don't really want that, or I don't like that, there's something you can find.
Nice. There's always options, it sounds like, and especially the fact that you have a diverse community. It seems like they do a great job as far as bringing different international cuisine too.
Yeah, and it's healthy. Like they're really good about trying to make sure things are healthy. Like for example, the drink options for kids. There's no pop soda machines for the kids. It's like juices and milk, and a couple like there's tea, coffee, a couple different kinds of flavored water sometimes. So the kids aren't just, and adults for that matter, aren't just drinking a bunch of sugary drinks to offset the healthy food that they're being served, which I thought kids might complain. Nobody complains about it at all. You can grab, it's nice. You can always get chocolate milk if you want something sweet.
So Ryan, tell me about dorm life. What's dorm life like at Wasatch Academy?
So our boys and our girls live in different dorms. The dorms are all double occupancy, no en suites. So there's community bathrooms. Nobody has any complaints about access to the bathrooms. The girls have bathtubs in their bathroom. Well, one, each dorm has a bathtub in each bathroom that the girls can access. Oddly enough, the boys are jealous of that. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many baths I took when I was in high school, but I'm not sure I would be complaining about not having one. But some
of those athletes might have injuries. Might want to
some of these want them, they want to soak a little bit. Yeah. But dorm life is everybody has a roommate. The dorms are actually really nice, and every dorm has a family room and a full functioning kitchen, and usually a smaller, like, some dorms use it as a dining room. Some dorms use it as like a second living room. And they got fireplaces in there and places for kids to hang out and sit and congregate and spend time together. The dorms are a good size, bigger than my college dorm rooms were. And we have live-in dorm parents. So we have dorm faculty who their job at Wasatch is to run the dorms, and then teaching faculty supports that with like every Tuesday and Wednesday, a faculty member is in the dorm during study hall to help monitor, give those dorm parents a little bit of a break, but also maybe answer questions about their content area that kids might have that's actually in their dorm. The kids, they have really nice amenities actually in the dorms.
So do the dorm parents, do they also serve as like an advisor too?
Some do, but most of our advisors are teaching faculty members or school administrators. But like, for example, one of our live-in dorm parents is also on the police force in the local community, and he'll do lessons with the kids either by class or sometimes in their dorms because they live in the dorm by class. About, if you remember when you were a kid, DARE, where you did substance abuse education and things like that, just starting those conversations with kids. So, he does some of that. He's also in charge of he's the lead safety person on campus. So he'll make his way into advisories to talk to kids about that kind of stuff. But those dorm parents, for the most part, are on from... Kids aren't allowed back in the dorm until the academic day is over. So when they leave in the morning, they don't go back. I mean, if somebody forgot something, they can get back in their dorm room to get their book or something. But they'd have to arrange that because their swipe cards won't work. But they have essentially the day off because from 4:30 in the afternoon when activity period's starting, or really 4 o'clock when kids are coming back to get changed for activity period, until the next morning at 7:45 when they're making sure everybody's up and out, they're on. So they don't have a whole lot of daytime responsibilities because of that dynamic.
Understandable. So would you say, is there a typical Wasatch Academy student?
A kid who's creative, for sure. A kid who's especially like a creative or divergent thinker. Kids who like to experience their education and learning instead of like being lectured to or learning out of a book. Those kids tend to really thrive here. Kids who are kind do well here. Our community is really warm and welcoming, and if you're not somebody who's warm and welcoming and appreciative of diversity, you're probably going to struggle here. But a kid who is looking for a way to have some experiences that they don't get a chance to have, an adventurous spirit, I think is a good way to describe kids who come here and thrive here. All that said, we've got kids who are not adventurous spirits who come here and thrive as well. But just with all the things that we have to offer, and a kid who really wants to be here. If you're a kid or a family who wants to be in New York City, Boston, an urban area, this is not the right place. But if you're somebody who's really into clean air, clean water, a nice, wholesome, quaint community, then we're right up your alley, for sure. But
that's great. So, Ryan, are there any quote-unquote cool traditions at Wasatch Academy that may be unique from other schools, or perhaps there's that one tradition you hope always remains part of the school?
Yeah, I think Founders Day is something that's really pretty cool. It's celebrated every spring. We bring alum back. It's sort of like a homecoming on steroids that's not focused on a football game.
Okay.
It's focused on celebrating the history of the school and the rich traditions that the school has to offer. I think that's something that's I hope would never go away, and it's something that brings the community in too, because we're always letting the community know we're appreciative of having one more year to check off on the calendar and say we're 150 now. That's pretty cool. And then immersions. I don't know if immersions are really a tradition, but I'm gonna say that they are, because they're an academic program that's been around here a long time, and every student has to go on an immersion every year, at least one. They can go on more, but they have to go on one. There's no additional cost for these immersions, and the immersions work something like this. So a teacher has a passion. For example, one of my kids went on an immersion that was the best of Utah. And for 4 days, they went and did different things that are unique to Utah. So you might go hiking in Bryce Canyon and seeing all that it has to offer. And then you might find yourself on the top of a ridge, hiking in fall foliage. And then you might find yourself kayaking on Great Salt Lake and going to the island where all the bison live. And then you might find yourself going up to the state capitol and observing the legislators doing whatever they're doing that day. Another one, they went down to see Shakespeare, and they're usually like 3 or 4 days, so 2 or 3 overnights somewhere. And they might go down to, say, St. George to the Shakespeare Festival and get an opportunity to see like 3 different Shakespeare plays and talk to the technical crew one day after a play, and then maybe talk to the actors after one of the plays. And then they might get a chance after the last play to talk to the directors who run those things and ask the higher level questions that they have there. And then they just had an immersion the other day where they went out and were doing Christmas tree cutting. And so they went into the National Forest. They hunted around for the trees that they needed to decorate campus, and then they harvested them and brought them back down. And then the next day, the community came together and worked to decorate them. So they literally can be all over the place.
What an awesome opportunity for the students.
Yeah, and there's usually, I would say maybe like 25 or 30 of them over the course of the year for kids to choose from, and they are an absolute smattering of different things that you could want to do.
So Ryan, before we talk about admissions, is there anything about Wasatch Academy that we didn't discuss today that you'd like to mention?
I love it here.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love your passion. That's great. So
I think Wasatch Academy is a special place for kids to come and kind of learn some stuff about themselves that they might not have ever learned if they didn't come to a place like this. And I think that that's kind of what makes the magic happen here, is that everybody, no matter where you're coming from, even kids that come from right down the road, have things that they get exposed to here that for not coming here would never have happened. And to see kids light up when they find something that's cool or drawing for them, to see that happen is pretty amazing.
Or playing the guitar like your son.
Yeah, or playing the guitar like my son.
So
yeah.
if someone's interested in learning more about Wasatch Academy, how might they go about starting the admissions process?
So our admissions process could start several different ways. They could email me at ryan.john@wasatch.org. They could go in to do an inquiry form, which is at the top right-hand corner of all of our web pages, and put their information there, and somebody from the team will reach out to them. Or they could go to the Apply tab at the top of the school's website, scroll down a little bit, and there's a big orange button that says Apply Now, or something very close to that, where they click and they can start the application process. Our application process for students involves, actually applying, gathering some letters of recommendation, which are really just forms for teachers to fill out, 1 English, 1 math, 1 personal. That's pretty standard across most schools. And then there is an interview that we have the kids go through with me or with one of the other recruiters that we have that work here in the office. And then transcripts, just pulling official transcripts from their current school and having a look at those. And then there's one additional step for international families, which is an English proficiency score. We take Duolingo, TOEFL, TESOL, and if there's other ones out there, and I've seen a couple other ones out there that are normed, we can take a look at those too and use those as we go through the admissions process. And then after we have all that, we have an admissions committee of 5 folks that meets and discusses each student, and then we have a decision on whether that there's admittance or whether it's not the right match.
And so once again, the website address for Wasatch Academy is?
It's Wasatch Academy, WASATCHACADEMY.org.
This is great. Well, Ryan, I've enjoyed our conversation today. This has been awesome to learn more about Wasatch Academy, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me, Jeff. I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Ryan John, Director of Enrollment Management, Wasatch Academy in Mount Pleasant, Utah.
Thank you for listening to the Why Boarding School podcast. We look forward to you joining us for our next episode. Please remember to subscribe to the Why Boarding School podcast and help us spread the word. Until next time.